This is the electric van that Chevy doesn't want you to own. Or at least you might think that, considering that they actually stopped building these recently. That was because not enough people actually wanted to own one. But I'm gonna show you why you should, because this is the longest range, fastest charging, most spacious, coolest designed electric van you can buy. And it's also one of the cheapest with all the dealer rebates. This is a 2025 Chevrolet BrightDrop 400. There is two different versions. There's the 400 and the 600. The 600 is about 5 feet longer in total length and about 2.5 feet longer wheelbase. They're offered in front wheel drive or all wheel drive. You can option them with 3 different battery packs, although the middle size battery pack is only available on the 2026 model year, and they have an MSRP of over $70,000. But like I mentioned in the intro, there is heavy dealer rebates on these vehicles to get them off the lot because they're not selling that well, despite how good they are. And the reason why is because this is an electric step van, not a cargo van. There is a difference. As you can see, with its wonderful sliding doors and its roll-up garage-style rear door, this is meant for package and mail delivery.
What the? He's having a bad day.
So I'm gonna take you on a tour of this one, and then I'm gonna take it for a drive, tell you my opinions on this lovely vehicle, and tell you whether or not you should buy it and why. Because as weird as it may look, this thing is designed for a very, very specific purpose, and that purpose it fulfills very well. So let's get started. All right, let's go up front. Up front, you have these large LED headlights. As you can see right here, LED high beam and low beam with automatic dimming of that high beam, although they are not matrix. You do have your LED turn signals right here. You do have a reflector over here on the side. Up here, you have your hood. And under here, there's not really much to talk about. There is a coolant reservoir, there is a brake fluid reservoir that you cannot access, your washer fluid, your fuse box, and your AC compressor. And that's about it. Close this up. You do have the Chevy bow tie right here in the middle. This is how you can tell a 2024 from a 2025. The 2024 will not have the Chevy bow tie. It'll just have the BrightDrop logo over here on the left. Down here, you have more BrightDrop logos in the lower bumper, although some of them are actually pass-through for A, battery cooling, and B, a cutout for the pedestrian warning speaker. You also have your camera down here for your front facing angle, license plate, parking sensors, and that's pretty much it. You will notice though that all the body panels up front are plastic. You do have these very large and tall wipers, a driver assistance camera, and a very tall front height. This is over 9 feet tall, which means you cannot go through drive-throughs or into parking garages and stuff like that. You will notice up here on the roof, you get these little lights because it is over a certain height. Let's move down to the suspension. Moving to the front axle, you will find a heavy-duty 8-lug 17-inch steel wheel with a Goodyear Wrangler Territory HT in the size of a 245/75 R17, which is actually a fairly narrow tire for something of this weight. Usually vehicles around this 7,000-pound curb weight have a thicker tire, usually 275s or wider, but this is actually fairly narrow. You do have disc brakes up front, and it is independent suspension in the front of this vehicle to accommodate that electric motor. I'm assuming it's probably McPherson strut, and it has coil springs. Nothing special up front, but let's move to the rear. Moving to the rear tires, you'll notice that they are the exact same ones as up front, so you can rotate these front to back. You'll also realize that you have disc brakes in the rear, which is nice. Not all heavy-duty vehicles have that. Sometimes they'll come with drum brakes instead. All BrightDrops have a solid axle rear suspension with leaf springs, which means that both wheels are combined into one beam and they move together up and down. This van has a 2,700-pound payload and a 9,990-pound GVWR. However, you can upgrade this rear axle to have a GVWR of 11,000 pounds or a payload of 3,700 pounds. Keep in mind that if you option the all-wheel drive, your payload drops by about 250 pounds, and if you upgrade to the 600 wheelbase, your payload drops by an additional 500 pounds. The minimum payload that you can see on one of these vans is about 2,000 pounds with the max range battery, all-wheel drive in the 600 wheelbase. price. Max payload you can get is 3,700 pounds on the van you see here. Either way, you still have a lot of payload to carry a lot of cargo. Let's move back up front and talk about some other stuff. Moving to the mirrors, you'll notice something from one side to the other. They're actually not symmetrical. This one is actually further back as it's designed to be looked at through this window. However, on the passenger side, it's supposed to be looked through this front quarter window. So that's a little bit interesting. Two things I'd also like to point out with these mirrors. This one is power adjust, this one is not. They are both heated. They do have blind spot monitoring, and they do not seem to be able to fold, but I don't think that would really affect much anyway. I will take note that I believe these cameras are aftermarket as part of the security driver monitoring system that this vehicle in particular has installed, but none of the BrightDrops from the factory have it. So keep that in mind. Also, none of the factory BrightDrops will have this random number here. This is just a vehicle ID number. You'll notice on this panel, next to all these little BrightDrop logos, there is a fireman's hat, and that is where the fireman's safety cut loop is. What that does is if the vehicle has been in an accident, the fireman can cut this little piece out and cut this little wire inside of there to disable the high voltage interlock in the battery pack to make it safe to be around, just to prevent fires and stuff like that. It's not a necessity, but it's nice to know that it's there, and that is how you access it. Most EVs is actually under the hood, but this is the only EV that I've actually seen that you can access it without opening a separate panel. Okay, let's hop inside the BrightDrop. Now here is the key fob. You do have your lock, unlock, panic, and remote start. Surprisingly, this vehicle does actually have remote start, which means you can run the climate control before you get inside to cool off the cabin. Although you actually don't technically need the key to get in, because there is this handy dandy button which will unlock the door and you can just slide it open. Although I will note something. This door is painted black, although every other BrightDrop that I've seen has been painted white. Not sure why that is. Once you open the door, you'll notice that this seat is actually quite high off the ground, which means you'll have to use this honestly kind of flimsy feeling grab handle to get inside. But once you do, you have a ton of visibility. There's glass everywhere. The mirrors are large. You have a ton of visibility in this thing. And I'll talk about this later when I mention the camera system. You actually have really good rear visibility, even though there is no back window or rear view mirror. Sitting in this seat, you'll notice a couple things. One, there's no armrest, which is a little bit annoying. It is 6-way manual adjust, so you got forward and backward, up and down right here, and recline. I will also note that this seat is heated. Your steering wheel is 4-way manual adjust. You pull this little lever down and you can go up and down and in and out, which is actually nice because not all vans have a telescopic steering column. The steering wheel itself is not leather wrapped, but it is heated, which is nice to see. You have your center infotainment screen, which is a touch screen, and the driver's display is actually the same size, although it is not a touch screen. There's some controls and stuff over here. 6 air vents, which is kind of excessive for just the driver's seat, but I guess it makes sense. So let's move over to the passenger side to mention some of the interior controls and features. All right, moving around to the passenger side, let's open the same sliding door, and you'll notice that you have this trainee seat, they call it. It is not very comfortable, and it is not heated, unlike the driver's seat, but it gets the job done. You do have this little like armrest stump thing, I don't even know what you call it. You do have the same orange seatbelt. You have an airbag right here, and that's pretty much it. It is very upright and not very comfortable, but it does exist. If you need to transport someone else in this vehicle to teach them how the route works or something like that, this gets the job done. Right in front of me, you do have a BrightDrop branded grab handle, 2 more air vents, some more cubby storage down here, some more in front of me. Let's move inside and talk about some of the controls in this vehicle. All right, let's cover some controls in the BrightDrop. First, you can see right here is the power button. So I'm gonna press that to start. Let's talk about the center display / control unit. Down here on the bottom, you have your climate control buttons, fan speed, temperature dial with your little screen in the middle, your heated seat control, heat, your heated mirrors, and your camera button. So you can see you have your front view, your rear view, top down view on the front and the rear, your front side, your back side, and if I shift into reverse, you can toggle on and off the reverse guidelines. In here, you also have your charging menu. You can schedule, you can precondition the battery by pressing start in the fast charge prep menu. You can use your Google Maps, which is fully functional. You sign in with your Google account. You can find charging stations on there. If you click here, it'll show you what percentage you will get to a charger with. It also has Google Assistant, so if I press this button on the steering wheel, hello.
Hey there, how can I help?
So you can download apps on this system. So if you wanted to, like, let's say install YouTube Music, you can download it from the Google Play Store. Let's go to our vehicle status menu. So this is where you can see your energy usage, so you can see what percentage percentage of your energy is going to driving, climate, or remote start, your average efficiency over the last mile, your tire pressures. You can click right here to see each individual tire pressure, or you can just click there and it shows it. You can also see your trip odometer. This is the only way to reset your trip. You can add that to the driver display. You can see your trip 1 and trip 2. You can also see your current trip. This will reset every drive. Up here at the top, you can see that you have this little toggle. This is to toggle your one pedal driving. Now I will mention these in the controls menu because it is also redundant. So you can access your camera from this control menu. You can quickly toggle traction control, or you can click see more controls. You can toggle your lights on and off, so your automatic high beams. This is how you can turn on your headlights, or you can just click the quick control up there. Or you can go in the drive and park menu. You can disable your traction control, your blind zone steering assist, and you can change your one pedal driving between off, normal, and high. That's pretty much everything in the center screen. Let's talk about the driver's screen. The driver's screen has your percentage, your kilowatt output. This will also change if you use more AC. So if I crank the AC up, you can see this will jump up from 1 kilowatt to 2 kilowatt or 3 kilowatt. And when you're charging, it'll go down in the negatives to show you when you're charging or regenning. Over here, this is your customizable section. So if I go back in here, if I click add to driver display, whatever you click will pop up right here on this section. See over here, you have your music. You can use these buttons on the steering wheel to flip through presets if you have those. And you can also press this button on the steering wheel to engage a more minimal view if it wants to. So you can see here now it just shows kilowatt, mile per hour, your cruise control set speed, your current speed limit, your range, your odometer, your ready light, your auto hold. One thing to note about the camera system is when you are in gear and I put on the blinker, it will pop up on the center gauge cluster and it will change depending on which blinker you have on. So you have your left and your right, of course. So those are the screens. Let's talk about the other physical controls. So here's the shifter. Weirdly, you don't just press down. You actually have to pull back and then down to shift. You have your blinker stalk over here, which you push down like this, or you twist this little thing, turn on your wipers. You have your parking sensors on and off, your rear step light, your lock, your unlock, rear cargo light, interior dome light, lane departure avoidance, and delivery mode. Delivery mode will do a couple things. First off, this vehicle is not optioned with it, but you can option this passenger door and this central door right here with a power open mechanism. So when you put the vehicle into park while delivery mode is engaged, they will automatically open. When you put it back in drive, it will close the door. The second thing it does, or when you put the vehicle in gear, you can see it honked to let you know that the vehicle is in drive in case you're outside and someone tries to steal it. This is your mirror control, and if you adjust it, you'll notice that I'm only adjusting that upper mirror. This lower mirror is actually manually adjusted, so you cannot adjust this from the interior while you're moving, which is a bit annoying. Right over here, you do have your power window switches. You do have automatic down, but not automatic up, unfortunately. They are placed here because if they were on the door, well, you know, you couldn't open it because it slides back into that pocket. Dimmer for the screens. Your park brake. You also have some buttons on the back of the steering wheel. These are not radio controls. These actually lock and unlock the center door, lock, unlock, and on this side, it'll unlock the side doors. I'll also note that the hood latch that we used earlier to open the front panel is right here, if you need it. Here you also have your buttons for OnStar as well. You will also notice up here that you have a large storage cubby, 2 speakers, your dome lights, which are controlled by this dome light button. You have your sun visors, like this. No mirrors, unfortunately. You also have some more cubbies up here, the 2 cup holders, more storage, a little LED for the collision avoidance, so that'll flash up on the windshield, and this seat will also vibrate when that happens. You have more storage down here, a perfect little cubby for your NACS adapter, USB-A, USB-C, a 120 volt power plug, and a 12 volt power socket. Under the floor, which is notably covered in a lot of BrightDrop logos, if you undo these little twisty ties, if you peer in there, there's the 12 volt battery, so it's literally right under your feet as you're driving. But if you need to jump start it, it's actually a pretty good place to get to in order to access. You'll also notice behind the driver's seat, there is a fire extinguisher. That's probably a good thing to have. You have a lot of little features that will help you to get the job done in terms of delivering packages and stuff like that. This van does have Bluetooth, and it does of course have speakers, so we're gonna do a sound system test. This does have wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, which is nice to see. You can see it's popped up right here. I'm not gonna click connect to CarPlay though, but you can use CarPlay over Bluetooth, which is very good. All right, I got the copyright-free house music loaded up. Let's click play. Oh, that's not, it's audible. Can I change the settings here? Sound? Oh, you can, there is an equalizer. Oh, that's just left-right balance. That's not even... Okay. To be honest, with the equalizer set to like a normal setting, it doesn't sound terrible. It's better than you would expect. Okay, so it's obviously only a 2-speaker sound system, but it sounds okay until you crank the bass, and then it sounds like it wants to die because there's no subwoofer, but that's pretty funny. Also, I guarantee at high speeds that this sound system sounds even worse than parked because, you know, there's obviously a way more wind noise at high speeds that you have to deal with. So yeah, don't buy this for the sound system, but that was pretty obvious anyway. Now moving down to the side of the BrightDrop, you will see that this wall is actually not metal. It is some sort of fiberglass or fiberboard or some sort of plasticky material, which means it should never rust, but it's also not the most structurally sound, at least right here. Back here it's a little bit better, but this is the part that covers the door, so it's not the most structurally integral. It does say BrightDrop down here, which is pretty neat. And like I mentioned, this is the 400, which means it is the short wheelbase variant of this vehicle. You can option it as a 400 or a 600. The 600 is about 5 feet longer and has a 2.5 foot longer wheelbase, so you can haul more stuff. Now around at the back, it is a very simple design. You have this nice step right here with built-in parking sensors, which means that when you back up to something, these sensors will detect it so you won't accidentally hit the step. You have your license plate. Your license plate lights are tucked up under there. You do have your tail lights, so this is your brake light and turn signal, another little reflector, your reverse light. Up there, you have another rear exterior light, although that one's not technically the reverse light. And way up here, you have your 3 red indicator lamps, which are required for a vehicle over a certain height. To get inside, press this little button and twist this latch. And you will see that the garage door style door has opened. So let's hop inside the rear of the BrightDrop. All right, before we go into the rear though, let's talk about this central door. So to open this door, you can't simply just pull on it, even though it should be unlocked. You press another one of these little buttons, it'll unlock, and then you can slide it open. It is actually in 2 distinct sections, and it'll lock right here. So let's move on back here. You'll notice back here that this one is equipped with shelves. You can see that these ones will fold down and fold up to give you more space if you need to store a tall item, but these are optional. Not all BrightDrops come with shelves. You have to order that from the factory. If you look here, you will find a full-size spare tire. This is also an option. You'll see above my head, even below the lowest point of the garage door, I still have 2 inches and I'm 6'1", and I'm standing up in here fully. So that is a nice thing to see. If we put all these shelves down like there, you can see the amount of cargo space that you would have to put packages, food deliveries, Amazon, whatever you want to do with this thing. You can do it. And you do have little D-rings on the floor to tie stuff down. A nice insulative floor material to stop some road noise. And you actually have a garage door style roller track, which is pretty interesting. And if I close this door, you will notice that there is some LED cargo lights. These are actually controlled by that switch up at the front. Like I mentioned in the controls segment, you can press the cargo light switch and that will turn those on, but they also turn on when you open the central door or the rear door. So there is a little bit of play in this door, but that is typical for garage doors anyway. And a garage door style spring to open that door. So that's pretty interesting. And you have some pretty industrial looking hinges. And if you want to open this door from the inside, let me lift up this, it'll be easier to demonstrate. There's this little button right here. Click that and then press down on this latch. And that'll open up this large garage door. Then when you want to close this rear door again, you have this little seatbelt looking strap that you can pull down on and then grab this handle and just firmly shut the door, and now it is closed. Now, I thought I'd mention while I'm back here that this vehicle actually has no official tow rating, which is a bit unfortunate. That means you can't tow a trailer with this thing, but I guess that makes sense because it is a delivery van, not a traditional cargo van. All right, so just like a Tesla, the charge port is actually on the driver's side rear. So this is very convenient to access, and you can see it is a manual charge port door. It's not powered or anything like that. You do have the CCS charge port standard, which means you will have to use an adapter to charge at superchargers, although this can do that, which is a nice feature. The peak DC charging rate is about 150 kilowatts. The peak AC charging rate is 48 amps, so that's 11.2 kilowatts at 240 volts. Although you can option this with an 80 amp onboard charger, which is 19.2 kilowatts for faster top-up times on level 2 chargers if you need it. The standard range battery pack, which is what this one is equipped with, has about 108 kilowatt hours of usable energy, which should give you a mixed driving range of about 180 miles, 178 to be exact, although in my own highway range test, I got 155. This is available with a mid-range and a max range battery pack. The mid-range is only available on the 2026 model year. That increases capacity to about 138 kilowatt hours, so about 30 more, and should add about 40 to 50 miles additional range. If you need even more range, you can step up to the max battery, which is about 180 kilowatt hours, which should give this thing up to about 300 miles of mixed driving, which is quite a lot. Like I mentioned before, you can option this with front wheel drive, which is what this one is, or all-wheel drive. The all-wheel drive adds about 67 extra horsepower. If you need a little bit more power, you can option all-wheel drive, and it does help with traction. Although I will note that the all-wheel drive and the max battery are usually paired together and usually only seen on the long wheelbase 600 trim. I have not seen really that many 400s with all-wheel drive or the max battery, but I believe you can get it if you look hard enough. I will also note that for the 2026 model year, they did make some other additional updates other than just the option of the mid-size battery pack. The first one includes vehicle to load. This allows you to backfeed about 7.2 kilowatts through several power outlets, including 4 120 volt outlets and 1 240 volt outlet. You can also, I believe, power your home through the charge port on the vehicle. Not 100% sure on that. The other update includes the introduction of Sirius XM compatibility. The 2025 and prior models do not have that, unfortunately. And the final change for the 2026 model year is the addition of proper lane centering, not just lane keep assist. I don't believe it is Super Cruise. I think it's some other lesser version of it, so it's not hands off or eyes off driver assistance, of course, but it will help you maintain your lane on the highway. Although, considering that this is a city vehicle, not really sure it's necessary. All right, so those are some of the quirks and features of this vehicle. Let's take it for a spin. All right, let's take the BrightDrop for a spin, shall we? Hopping up inside here, gonna buckle my orange seatbelt, which is an option, and power it up. And then we'll put it into gear, and we're off. That's all there is to drive this thing. Pretty simple to get going. We're gonna test this thing's acceleration, handling, maneuverability, its comfort, and give you guys some of my thoughts on how this thing actually drives. As you can see, I've turned my turn signal on, and this nice turn signal camera has appeared, although it is not the highest resolution, unfortunately. And that's to the floor. 25, 30, 40. It's not super fast, but it does have plenty of power because it ramps into it very linearly to not upset the load that you have in the back of your vehicle. There's 30, I'm on the floor, 40. There's full power unlock at 51 miles an hour, 60, 65, 70, getting a little bit of vibration here from the doors. And there's 75 miles an hour, which is the electronically limited top speed of this vehicle. You can actually hit 76 as I'm doing right here, but you cannot go any faster than that. There's no way to disable that electronic speed limiter as far as I know. I think it's honestly fast enough. In this vehicle, I don't think you really want or need to go any faster than that, though at least you can get up to a reasonable highway speed and actually cover some distance. The thing is, though, when you do get up to these speeds, one, it's very noisy, and two, the highway range is not very good. It only has about 150-mile highway range. I did a full range test. Click the link up in the card to see that. This thing is not designed for highway cruising. There's no armrests. You know, it gets the job done on the highway for short trips. Dropping down to about 55 miles an hour, a lot of the road noise and wind noise has diminished at this lower speed. 6-way manual adjust seat and 4-way manual adjust steering column, so you can get a nice driving position. You sit up high, you have plenty of visibility. The cameras are great, so you can see behind you. And this thing is actually surprisingly easy to park because it has that 360 top-down view. I'm going to turn left. Blind spot camera has popped up. I'm going to regen down. This thing does have really strong regen, pulled about 150 kilowatts on the high setting. You can turn it down to a normal setting, which will pull about 50 kilowatts less, or you can turn it completely off if you do not want one pedal drive, but the one pedal drive works excellently in this vehicle. All right, pulling away from the stop sign, giving it a little bit of acceleration. And I'm only giving it about half throttle here, but you can see it's actually picking up pretty decent. Going over this bridge here, doing about 55 miles an hour. There is a little bit of road noise from the bridge, but at these lower speeds, anything below about 60 miles an hour is decently quiet for what I would expect. All right, we're coming into a little bit of a slower speed area here. Speeds are dropping to about 50 miles an hour. What is nice is that the speed limit is very accurately displayed on the driver information display, so you can know what the speed limit is, so you don't accidentally go too fast and break laws and get tickets. And the Google Maps integration is nice because it does have built-in route planning, so it'll tell you where you need to charge if you're going on a journey longer than the vehicle's range. You also have the Google Assistant. What's the weather today?
With a forecasted high of 77 and a low of 56.
The Google integration is nice. What is not so nice is the sound system. I had a sound system test earlier. Not very good. It's only 2 speakers and they're way up high, and it's a little bit boomy in here anyway, so it's hard to hear the sound system. But it does exist and it is audible. If I was driving this around daily, I would just use AirPod Pros with noise canceling. It'd be a lot more usable. Let's pull into this parking lot right here and test out the turning radius. Do note that if you try to go into a parking garage or a drive-through, don't, because you will not be able to fit, because it is a 9-foot tall vehicle. All right, let's test out the turning radius right here. So I'm gonna go full lock on the wheel. And as you can see, it makes a fairly tight arc here and actually clears that air compressor, which is nice to see. This thing has a very, very sharp turning radius. What does not have a sharp turning radius is this Chevy Silverado that just pulled in. Pulling out, there's a little bit of a bump there, but this thing actually has a very good approach angle, so you shouldn't scrape on any inclines, which is nice. And accelerating up to the speed limit of 35 miles an hour is easy. This thing has plenty of power, even though it's not actually that fast. I'm gonna set the adaptive cruise control. So I'm gonna click this button and then click set. You do have 3 selectable following distance. It'll match the speed to the car in front of you. You can change it in 1 mile an hour increments or change it in 5 mile an hour increments by holding the button up or down for a longer period of time than just flicking it. If you get a 2026 model year BrightDrop, you can actually get active lane centering. I don't think it's super cruise or anything that advanced, but it will actually do active lane keep rather than just lane keep assist. So far the ride quality is actually pretty decent. The rear does have leaf springs for high payload capacity, but the front should be coilover suspension. And it rides stiff, but not like sports car stiff. It's more like a utility vehicle stiff, like think Ram 3500, something like that. Maybe Ram 2500 more realistically. It rides pretty well. The weight is dampened pretty well by that suspension, and it actually drives a little lighter than it actually is. This thing weighs around 7,000 pounds, but it drives closer to the weight of about 5,200 in my mind, maybe 6,000. Anyway, we're coming up to a curvier section of road, so we're actually gonna see how this thing handles, which is, I think, better than most of you would probably expect. We're coming up to our first bend here. I'll probably take it at about the speed limit, which is about 60 miles an hour. We'll see how it does. Now, there is very little seat bolstering. You know, we'll see what we can do. All right, first corner at about 59 to 60 miles an hour. Not a ton of body roll, surprisingly. It feels very controlled and stable, which is good to see. All right, here's a sharper corner. It says to take it about 35 miles an hour. We'll probably do it at around 40-ish. So I'm gonna regen here. Take it at about, we'll try 45 miles an hour. Here's 45 into the corner. Not too bad, honestly. You could have probably taken that at 55 if you were really daring. You know, it is a manageable vehicle and it handles decently well. There's very little body roll. It's very stable, very predictable for such a tall vehicle. There you go, I'm on the floor right there. There's 60 up the hill. I don't know, I'm impressed with how this thing drives. It handles very well. And We did see that Chevy brought back the Bolt, so we can convince them to bring back vehicles because they discontinued it back in 2023, and it's back for the 27 model year. So maybe we can convince them to bring back the BrightDrop. On the bright side, these vehicles are still really available. If you're looking for one of these, used or new, you'll probably find around the same price, but I would highly recommend it. If you know what you're getting into, don't expect a fast vehicle or one that is the best daily driver, but you can, of course, daily drive this. Let's say if you turn this into an RV or something and this is your only vehicle, you can do it. Accelerating out of this corner, catching up to this Jeep in front of me. Here's a really sharp bend. I'm going to slow down for this one because this one, you definitely do not want to take it at anything over 30. Here's 35 miles an hour, 30. You know, that was not actually that bad. That was actually pretty manageable. And this other bend here, I'm actually catching up to the guy in the freaking Grand Cherokee. Full acceleration, 30, 40, 50, 55, which is the speed limit, there's 60. I did time the 0 to 60. It was around 12 seconds, which is pretty slow, but it doesn't feel underpowered. It doesn't feel like it's struggling to do a 12-second 0 to 60. It just feels smooth and competent. If Chevy wanted to, they could easily give this thing a 0 to 60 down in the 8s with just a software tune. If they just gave it full power from the get-go or made it just ramp in a little earlier, this thing could probably do an 8 or a 9 0 to 60 on the front-wheel drive model. The one downside, I think, to this vehicle is that it cannot tow at all. Although I fully understand the reasoning behind why it cannot do it, because it doesn't have that much power, it's front-wheel drive, it's designed for deliveries, not towing. But other than that, this thing is fully capable of doing whatever you might want to do other than off-road. That's the only thing that I would say is a no-go in this vehicle. Coming up to some train tracks here, I'm going to hit it at the speed limit, which is about 55 miles an hour, and see what the ride quality feels like. This is a fairly aggressive train track too, so we'll see how this feels. Here's 55 miles an hour. Okay, well, my iPhone fell down, but it wasn't actually because of the speed bump, so I'm gonna actually pull over. Yeah, the speed bump actually wasn't, the train tracks weren't that bad. The suction cup on that mount is just not the greatest thing in the world. All right, rebuckle up the orange seatbelts, and let's take off here. There's no one behind me. Turn the hazards off, put it back in drive. Oops, foot slipped off the accelerator there. There we go. All right, accelerating back up to speed, 30. 40, 50, 55, and that's the speed limit. Coming up to a stop sign here, we'll test the regen again. This is on the high setting. I'm actually going to set it to normal, just to feel the regen on the normal setting. We'll lift off right about here. So we're pulling about 120 kilowatts on regen, so it's about 40 kilowatts less than high, which is actually pretty noticeable. I do notice the difference in the regen braking. And I'm not flooring it here, but it's still accelerating fairly decently. That's flooring it. Made basically no difference when I did that. I'm gonna turn the regen back up to high. Actually, I'm gonna turn it off because I'm curious if this does blended braking or not. And the answer to that is yes. I'm pressing the brake pedal and it is feeding in more regen gradually as you slow down, which is nice to see. So even if you turn off the one pedal drive, you will actually not lose that much efficiency. Anyway, we're about at the end of our test loop here. Let's wrap up my final thoughts. Handling, better than you would expect. Noise, worse than most vehicles, but probably about what I would expect. Comfort, pretty decent other than no armrest. The range is a bit of a bummer, but the max range is available. Acceleration is fine, and visibility is fantastic. But other than that, this thing drives pretty well. And that's going to be the end of the driving segment, so let's cut to the outro. All right, so that was driving the Chevrolet BrightDrop, and this thing actually drives a lot better than I think most people think these vehicles do. It handles decently well, has enough power, enough range on the max battery. The standard range doesn't have a lot of range, but it will work for city routes, and it has plenty of cargo space. Now I'm gonna answer the question on whether or not you should buy one. Well, I think it vastly depends on what you're using this vehicle for. If you run a distribution center for companies like Amazon, FedEx, USPS, or UPS, this is a fantastic vehicle because you can save on maintenance costs, fuel costs, and maybe even total vehicle costs as well, because these are currently selling in the mid-40s with dealer rebates fresh off the lot. You can get these surprisingly cheaply because GM hasn't found enough buyers. So there's a ton of inventory and you can get them with a ton of rebates. But is it actually a usable vehicle? Well, the answer to that is of course. It has tons of space, good technology. The comfort is decent enough. It is quiet enough to live with on a daily basis. And that was the whole point of this thing, is to be able to be a comfortable, safe, reliable vehicle to do deliveries, food deliveries, parts deliveries, build an RV, build a food truck, whatever you want. You can do it with this. And I think it is the best value electric van you can buy. It has the most range by far out of any of its counterparts, the best technology other than maybe the Rivian EDV, but I haven't tested that one specifically, the most space, and I think it has the coolest design by far. If you're looking for an electric van, not even a step van, you should consider the BrightDrop because it offers a lot of things that no other vehicle on the market can give you. Anyway, my final thoughts, this might actually be one of my most favorite reviews I've done. This is a very special vehicle, and it's just so different compared to the stuff I've been reviewing. You know, EVs are the future, at least for stuff like this, and I think this vehicle makes perfect sense. Anyway, that'll be the end of this video. See y'all in the next one.